It was close to midnight when the undercover CEO, dressed in worn work clothes, wandered through the quiet halls of the company's old factory. The hum of distant machinery had faded, replaced by the dripping of a faucet somewhere ahead. As he turned a corner, a dim yellow light spilled from the open door of the laundry room. Inside, he saw her, a young woman with her sleeves rolled high, hands deep in cold water, scrubbing tiny shirts and socks in the sink. Her movements were slow but steady, almost mechanical, as if this late-night ritual was nothing new. A few feet away, a small boy sat on a wooden bench. He couldn't have been more than 6, his thin frame swallowed by an oversized hoodie. His legs swung back and forth, but there was no energy in them, and every so often, he pulled the fabric tighter around himself, trying to keep warm. The CEO hesitated in the doorway, unsure if he should interrupt. There was something about the scene. The quiet determination in her face, the way the boy's eyes followed her every move, that spoke louder than words. He stepped inside, the faint creak of his boots breaking the stillness. The woman looked up, startled, and quickly forced a smile, as if to assure a stranger that everything was fine. But the raw redness of her hands told a different story. In that moment, he knew he had stumbled upon something that would change both of their lives. He stepped closer, careful not to startle her again, and asked gently, "Why are you here so late?" For a moment, she hesitated, as though weighing whether to tell the truth. Her eyes flickered toward the boy, who now rested his head on the bench, half asleep. With a quiet sigh, she said, "I work double shifts, sometimes triple. By the time I'm done, the laundromat is closed. Even if it wasn't, I can't afford both rent and the machines." She dipped another shirt into the water, wringing it with tired hands. "So, I come here after hours. At least he'll have clean clothes for school tomorrow." Her voice cracked slightly, betraying the exhaustion she tried to hide. She didn't complain, she didn't ask for help. She spoke like someone who had long accepted this as her reality. Yet in the middle of her words, she glanced at her son and smiled, soft and genuine, as if to remind herself that every sacrifice was worth it. The CEO stood in silence, feeling the weight of her words. He noticed her hands again, raw from cold water and harsh soap. On the bench, the boy's small backpack rested at his feet, the zipper half open to reveal a few crumpled papers, a handful of crayons, and no toys at all. Something about her quiet resilience and unspoken pride struck him deeply. She wasn't just washing clothes, she was holding her world together with nothing but determination and love. The CEO leaned against the doorway, his gaze fixed on the simple, heartbreaking details in front of him. The harsh fluorescent light revealed the deep lines of fatigue etched into her young face. Every movement of her hand seemed heavier than it should be, yet there was a steady rhythm, the rhythm of someone who couldn't afford to slow down. As she spoke a little more, telling him about juggling her shifts, school pickups, and nights like this, he noticed the small signs most people would overlook. Her shoes were worn thin, the soles uneven from years of use. The boy's hoodie had tiny tears along the cuffs, hastily stitched back together. His socks didn't match, but they were clean, a quiet testimony to the care she put into every detail for him. The CEO's eyes fell on the boy's backpack again. It wasn't filled with snacks or toys like other kids his age might carry. Instead, it was stuffed with schoolwork, colored drawings, and a plastic bag holding a spare t-shirt. No frivolity, just essentials. In that moment, something shifted inside him. This wasn't just an employee struggling to get by, this was a woman pouring every ounce of herself into giving her child the life he deserved, even if it meant breaking herself in the process. He felt a knot form in his throat. It was the first time in years that a simple, unplanned encounter made him truly see the human side of his company, and the people who kept it alive. A week later, the company gathered for what everyone thought would be an ordinary meeting. Employees filled the break room, chatting idly as the CEO, now in his true suit and tie, stood at the front. Many didn't even recognize him as the quiet, work-clothed man they'd seen on the factory floor days earlier. He began with a story. "Last week," he said, "I met someone here who reminded me why I started this company. Someone whose strength, love, and determination put any business success to shame." The room grew quiet, curiosity replacing the usual meeting boredom. He looked directly at the young woman from the laundry room. Her brow furrowed in confusion as murmurs spread through the crowd. The CEO continued, "I saw a mother, washing her child's clothes in a factory sink after midnight, because every penny she earns goes to keeping a roof over their heads. She never asked for help. She simply kept going." Then came the moment that made the room gasp. "From this day forward," he said, voice firm but warm, "your rent is paid for the next year, and your family will never worry about laundry again. And as of today, you have a new position with better pay and hours." Her hands shot to her face, tears spilling through her fingers as the room erupted in applause. The boy, sitting beside her, didn't fully understand, but he hugged her tightly, sensing that something big had just changed forever. Months later, the transformation was impossible to miss. The once exhausted young mother now walked into work with her head high and a confidence that lit up the room. Her shifts were no longer spent in quiet desperation but in leading a small team, mentoring others who had once stood where she did. She wore clothes that fit well, not because they were expensive, but because they were chosen without the burden of choosing between necessities. Each morning, she walked her son to school, their laughter mingling with the crisp air. He wore a proper winter coat now, bright and warm, and his small backpack bulged with books and art supplies. Gone were the days of mismatched socks and patched hoodies, replaced by the simple dignity of having enough. At the company, her colleagues noticed the change. She carried the same work ethic as before, but now it was fueled by possibility instead of survival. The CEO often watched from a distance, a quiet smile on his face, knowing that one late-night encounter had set this chain of change in motion. One afternoon, as she left the office, her son ran to her, waving a crayon drawing. It showed three figures, a mom, a little boy, and a man in a suit. Above them, in uneven handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for helping my mom." The CEO kept a copy of that picture in his office. Whenever business pressures piled up, he'd glance at it and remember, the greatest success he'd ever earned was measured in lives, not profits.